I'm going to get right into it. My plan is to take you through the construction of a personal indicator formula that returns numeric values, and specifically, we're going to create a standard deviation formula. And the reason that we're going to do that is that the built-in standard deviation function is specifically for closing prices. And we're going to make a more generalized version of that you could apply to any indicator for which there is syntax in the personal criteria formula, or for which you can create syntax in the personal criteria formula language. So we've actually got a generalized template in the help files. You can open the help files by going to the help menu and selecting help, and that should open up a window, which I'm going to have to switch to. And we're going to go down into the personal criteria formula section and scroll down to standard deviation. Open that up. Open the custom PCF formula section. And this generalized template is what we're going to copy to create our formula.
Okay, so let me interrupt you for just a second. So what you've done is take us into our help files. You've pulled up this article, and that formula already exists there, and it's the one that gives us a standard deviation of price, basically.
Right, and it's not actually a formula that you could just generally paste into the formula editor, and it would give you a result. It's going to generate errors because it doesn't know what W and X are. It's just a template for creating a formula. While we're in the help section, I'm going to kind of go back up and point out that we've also got a few new formulas where we've actually done all of the work of using all of the new stuff. So in the custom PCF formula section, if we scroll down, this is actually in the new format. Okay, so that's what that looks like. And we may come back to that later, but I just wanted to kind of point that out. We're in the process of doing that, and it may take a while to get everything converted. But in the meantime, in all of the older articles where there's a generalized formula, you can use that for practice to do the same sort of thing that we're doing with standard deviation with other indicators if you want to give it a try on your own. So we're going to go back. Are we back in TC2000?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I'm going to create a new indicator formula because we are going to be creating a numeric indicator. And since we're creating standard deviation, we'll just give it that name. And I'm going to start by putting in 3 slashes. Okay, and that's going to give me some comments that are built in. If I've just put in 2 slashes, I can put in any comment that I want, just kind of free form. This is where I can put comments. But the first 2 lines, when we put in 3 slashes, create special comment lines that are used by the program when you're doing searches to find something that you know it's standard deviation, but maybe you just type SD, or maybe you're just searching for an indicator or something, and you can do that.
All right, let me interrupt you just because this is new for us. So basically, this gives us the ability to describe what it is we're making and to tag it for searching, but those things in green don't actually affect the formula at all. It's just a place where we can put all these descriptions and comments, right?
Right, and all of the comments are going to be in green. One of the new things that's been added in addition to the comments is some color coding. so you can at a glance tell if something is a comment or one of the built-in part of the syntax of the personal criteria formula language, or maybe a function that you have created on your own. So
Great.
um, so let's plug in a description of standard deviation. I'm going to I just copied that and pasted that directly from the help file that we used previously. And we will give it a tag for like searching. I'm just going to use SD because it's kind of shorthand that people might use for standard deviation. And I don't need my comment line, so I am going to get rid of it. Then I'm going to paste in that formula template that we copied from the help file. And if you'll notice it down here, it says that there's a formula error. And if we put in details, it says it has no idea what W is at position 14 because it doesn't know what W is. So what we're going to do is we're going to make W. In this case, we're going to add it as a parameter. Let me show you how I did that. Go down to this hamburger menu, just the 3 lines on top of each other, kind of like a bun and a patty, and add a parameter. And we're going to call this the parent. So this is what is being, what we're taking a standard deviation of. And normally this would be of closing prices. So that's what we're going to put in as the default. And we'll give it a little description. This is the indicator for which we are calculating the standard deviation.
So a
Okay.
parameter, so a parameter then is what? Some sort of variable that can be changed? What is a parameter?
It's an argument that can be put into a function or a variable, like you said, a variable that can be changed. It's not a user definable variable in the sense that during the course of calculation of the formula, we can change it. But it is something that we can set a value for before the calculation starts as part of the code.
Cool.
So, and one of the things that this does is that, you know, if we just put in C here, yeah, we've got it in the formula. We've got C in the formula for W, but we have to put it in twice. And that's just one thing. We want to be able to make it so that it can do standard deviations of things besides the closing prices. So once we've created that parameter, we can put in kind of the more reader-friendly version down here. And when we start typing that, you'll see it kind of brings up that. We can just hit the space bar and it fills in parent. You can do that over here in the second instance. Hit the space bar, fills in parent. And now we've still got an error. And that error is because of X. It doesn't know what X is. So we're going to do the same thing with X. Go down here, click the hamburger icon, click add parameter. And this is actually the period of the standard deviation. So
Bruce, do you have to go down to that hamburger icon every time to create parameters?
no. I can actually go in here, type param,
Nice.
star, period, if I can type. And I'll put in the description. And we're gonna, the number of bars over which we are calculating the standard deviation. And so we can put it in with the hamburger icon or without it. You'll
Cool.
notice that even when we did it without the hamburger icon, it did kind of like fill in this stuff, allowed us to auto-complete the period, put in the description for us to kind of fill in, so you don't have to go down into that hamburger icon to do it, but it can be, if you don't know exactly all of the things that you can add to the code, it gives you a good way to do that. You'll note that now I've got both a parent and a period. When I hit the pound, I can use the down arrow to get down to period, hit the space bar, fills that in, go to the second instance, boom, space bar, fills it in. And you'll note that these
So,
are, I don't know, you want to call them cream or yellow, but these are the colors that it has for the built-in, or for the parameters and that we've created. And the blue is the built-in personal criteria formula language syntax. So for functions, indicators, that sort of thing. And then white is, things like math and stuff like that. That's just kind of extraneous to that, or any arguments that you might put in. So at this point, we have created a standard deviation that's currently applied to closing prices, just like the normal standard deviation indicator. Click OK. We can plot that here as a custom PCF indicator. And just to show that it's working, we can add another plot here. Did I? Add a custom PCF indicator and use the built-in syntax, which also will autocomplete.
I noticed there's a lot of that in the new PCF stuff where it gives you the choices that you can pick from. That's really helpful.
It is. And you'll notice that the scales match, everything overlaps. So we've kind of gone in, we've verified that the formula kind of does what we say it does, and matches the results of the built-in indicator. Now, if it's all it did, we just wasted a lot of time. But we have other things that we can do with that now. So if we go in and we edit our original things, one of the things that we can do is we can go down here to this label, and we can call it, maybe call it generalized standard deviation. Okay, and that's going to change the label. So it's in there, go back in, do the edit. And one of the things that you'll notice is that we've got this big long description in here, and we can't see our formula. Now we could scroll down and find it. But one of the other things that they've added just for this sort of thing, so we can go down and edit this in a standalone window. And that brings up this nice big window where everything is easy to see and read. So if we are just doing, like I said, if we're just doing closing prices, but the whole reason we did this is we can now do things like standard deviation of the open. I'm not necessarily sure why somebody would do that, but you can see that it's going to give us a slightly different result. And we can go further, and we could import a function. So let's add a function from the library. Let's do a linear regression slope. which I created earlier. And this is just the linear regression slope of closing prices. But when we click OK on that, it's going to add it down here to the bottom as a function. And we've got
Okay,
the
let me stop.
same. Go ahead.
Let
Yeah.
me interrupt you again. Talk to me about a function. Tell me what a function is. What are we talking about there?
A function, and it'll be useful to kind of go into this function to kind of show what it is. A function is kind of like those parameters that we created up top, but they're external to the code and they take arguments. In this case, a period and a parent, just like what we have, and an offset, which is the number of bars ago. And that's going to be built into every one of the functions that you create is an offset. So even if you weren't to add your own parameters, there would be an offset parameter that you could use. And if we go into that and look at that, I've actually done a little something, added something a little different in this. I've got the two parameters, but I also have this constant. Now, the constant differs from the functions, differs from the parameters in that it doesn't show down in this list. I mean, I can still go into the formula and edit it, but it's not listed as one of the things that you can change that kind of bubbles up to the top. And the reason that I used a constant in this particular case is while I might want to change the period, I don't want to change this constant, which is kind of the number of kind of one bar intervals within the period, because that's always going to be the period minus one, right? So there was no reason for me to kind of allow the customer to change that or myself to change that later, because if I go in and I change that to a period of 18, then this interval is automatically going to change to 17 when it was 19 before. So that's the difference between a constant and a parameter. Otherwise, they're the same thing, except that one kind of bubbles up and shows as something that you can change and edit, and the other, while you can still technically go in and edit it, is probably something that you don't want to edit and isn't exposed kind of externally. So let's change that back to 20, not that it matters. Click OK. So let's say I use this linear regression slope as the parent, okay? Star. If I just put it in like that, it's automatically gonna like bring in that, but I could change the period as part of this syntax because it's exposed as part of the function. So I can make that a 10 period. And I could change the, currently the parameter, it's currently set to the open. I could change that back to the close. And I could do that for 5 bars ago, kind of as part of the code because it's a function. I would actually, since it's going to show up in more than one place, want to change it up here. Regression slope.
You good? I think you got
I'm going to
two
do
E's.
20. Thank you very much. And don't have 2 S's. Or you'll see that turns purple once I've got it right. And so boom. Click OK. And now it's calculating the linear regression or the standard deviation of the linear regression slope. And one of the nice things you can see about that is that when things are changing a lot, let's get rid of the other line. don't need that anymore. When the slope is kind of changing, that kind of peaks, and so that's nice. But I just did it to kind of demonstrate the difference between parameters and constants, and to show you how to import a function from outside. You can also take any formula that you've already created and bring it in as a function. So we would go down to the hamburger icon again, and then add function from library, and go into my indicators. You will see that I have bunches of things that I've created at various times in the past. And so we could bring in percent change from the open. Okay, click OK. It brings it in. Now, because we didn't create it kind of using the new formula editor, the only parameter that it has built in is the offset. But if I wanted to now do a standard deviation of the percent change from the open to close, I could just kind of go up here, change this to OC, and we can now do a standard deviation of just any other, indicator-based formula that we've created in the past. So,
so can they take an indicator, MACD, stochastics, or something like that, and use it in this kind of formula?
you can, not from the chart. So I can't add a MACD to the chart, drag it into the formula editor, and
Sure.
have it come in. But I can go in. Let's bring that up in the big window because it's a lot easier to use there in the standalone window. Go in, and instead of using MACD, or instead of using the open versus close or one of the functions, I can start typing MACD and 1226. And when we're done, get a 20-period standard deviation of MACD 1226, so an exponential MACD 1226.
Wow.
And all we had to do was go in there and change that. Wow, that was a lot more efficient. I think this is pretty much what we covered in the first seminar, but I did it in half the time.
It's really good. Somebody asked why the pound sign is used there when you're like putting
it
in
is
period.
It is just something so that the personal criteria formula language knows that you're getting ready to put in something that you created as a parameter, a constant, or a function. It is not, it's just kind of to differentiate it. So if I were to create something that was, okay, if I go down here and it knows that that is something that I've created. Whereas if I go in and I type standard deviation like that, without the pound sign, it is going to think that's the built-in standard deviation function. So
Gotcha.
it allows you to differentiate the stuff that you've created from the stuff that is kind of already built in, and it knows that it needs to look to the top to see where any parameters, constants, or functions down at the bottom that you've created. Basically, the way all of this works, kind of underneath, is that you've got the comments and make it like a lot easier to read. But what it also does is it's essentially a replace function.
Hmm.
So it is taking 20, and any place where there's standard deviation, it's kind of substituting that in and putting in a 20. Any place where there's parent, it's going down and it's substituting in MACD 1226.
So a couple of quick things for people that have been using PCFs. Does their PCF stuff they already have, or the old kind of the older way of writing it, does that all still work? Uh-oh, I think we might have lost you, Bruce. Well, I'm glad that he got through all of his material, because I think he's locked up and we've lost him. So I guess that's our signal that we're gonna wrap this one up. I hope this was helpful, but hopefully this will get you off the mark and get you started using the new features of the personal criteria formula. Remember, articles are already done on the new features, the new things that you saw Bruce using. They're in the help file, so help.tc2000.com. And they're available for you. And we are in the process of redoing all of the old articles that used the previous kind of iteration of PCFs and trying to update those so that they reflect the new things. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you for being here. I hope that was helpful. Keep your eye on your email for those links to rewatch the videos. And we trust that you're going to have a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon.